It's been sunny all day, but you've been stuck in your real-life job in the office. Boo. Perhaps you've been kept late in a meeting. Perhaps the bus has been delayed. You're racing against the other commuters, trying to get home because you know you can capture a cracking hyperlapse sunset. In this video, I'm going to show you some time-saving tips that'll help you get up in the air and capture that sunset before it disappears.
Keep watching to the end as well, because there's a warning about trying to be too clever.
This is the emergency sunset hyperlapse video.
Now, I must have done hundreds of hyperlapses over the years. And loads of them have been of sunsets. You could call me a sunset hyperlapse addict. Whether you've got a DJI Flip, DJI Mini 4 Pro, DJI Air 3 or a posh Mavic, this is a beautiful feature. Now, I've put these tips together over the course of about 7 or 8 days, so we'll be jumping around between different takes because I've had an argument with my editor and I'm going to give you a few tips on how to make sure that you're always ready to take a sunset hyperlapse at the drop of a hat. And I'll also be going through a few tips that I've learned from doing them. First thing in the morning, you get your batteries charged, you get your controller charged, you get your drone out ready, stick a weakish filter on just in case, and then when you get home, you can go out and grab them, go straight out in your garden and take off. And you should have plenty of time unless you've been kept really late at work. One thing to say about keeping your batteries charged is the best thing to do is charge them up first thing in the morning. Make sure they're fully charged, unplug them, and then when you get home, give them a little top up. I wouldn't recommend leaving your batteries charging whilst you're out. You never know what could happen with them. We've all heard the stories.
Fire.
What time is sunset today?
Sunset will be at 5:58 p.m. today.
Okay, so that means I'm going to get out there about 5:50, get all prepped, get the drone up in the air and start shooting a couple of minutes before sunset so that you can get the sun going down just over the horizon. That's quite important. If you try to do it after, then you won't get a sunset. Right, I can't leave it any longer. I'm going to get it up there and I'm going to set up the hyperlapse waypoints. I will be doing a deep dive video into hyperlapse techniques quite soon, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you can find out when that happens. Oh, and hey, please don't forget to hit like on the video. Helps get it out to other people that might find it useful. Thanks a lot. We want to get it really high up in the air, probably to between 70 and 120 meters, just so that we don't disturb the neighbors. Now let's turn it towards the sun and we're going to select hyperlapse and then waypoints. Set your gimbal first. Remember those thirds to make it look good. We start off the hyperlapse closest to us, so that's the first waypoint. And then let's fly away from us. And that way we can start the hyperlapse from the furthest point, get the drone coming towards us, and then we don't need to worry so much about the battery being really low because it's going to be close to us when it comes back. Now at this point you can fiddle around with your shutter speed settings. The lower the better, but obviously the lower your shutter setting, the more light you'll let in, so you'll make it more overexposed. I've set my ISO in Pro mode to 100. That's so that I get as little noise in the picture as possible. The shutter speed is set quite low as well. The Mini 4 Pro will adjust its exposure to compensate for this. So you want to start off with a fairly neutral exposure around 0 or just under. Then as it starts to get darker and the sun sets, you'll see the exposure level drop as the Mini 4 Pro compensates. If it gets to -3, then you've probably gone a bit too low. We've also got an ND32 on here, which may seem a little strong for twilight, but don't forget we're facing straight into the sun. Absolutely no point in putting a polarizing filter on it because we're facing towards the light source, and polarizing filters are least effective at 0 degrees to the light source or 180 degrees to the light source. Let's set that waypoint. We're going to go for as long as we can, and you get a warning to say if the battery level is going to be too low. See, 19 seconds, Can we do 20 seconds? We can just about do 20 seconds.
Once you've got your settings dialed in, hit the tick, change your sequence to reverse and press start.
Aircraft is flying to the first waypoint.
The aircraft will start flying from the last waypoint that you set, saving you lots of time and battery.
So while we're waiting for that hyperlapse to complete, a few tips. Firstly, the weather conditions. Even though it was really cloudy a few minutes ago, because there's a bit of a breeze, it looks like the clouds are clearing. Now this could be really good, but because there's that slight breeze, it could blow the drone off.
Okay, don't be gross.
But because there's that slight breeze, it could blow the drone off course slightly whilst it's taking its hyperlapse, so we may get a wobble in the hyperlapse. It's always good to have a fairly windless day, but not too windless. And also you want a few clouds in the sky, because that makes things very dramatic when you've got that. If you've got no clouds, you've just got a setting sun, and that's it. Now that said, you don't want it too windy, because the drone might get blown about and you'll get one or two jerks in the hyperlapse. This happened in this one. I'm getting intermittent strong wind warnings. If they seem to be fairly permanent, it is probably best to bring the drone back in and try again another day. Set your hyperlapse time for as long as you dare. This is why it's important to have a really fresh, fully charged battery. Doesn't matter if you go over the time when the sun goes down. But the worst thing is if the sun's just about to get to a stage where it's going to lens over that horizon and your hyperlapse has just ended. Don't forget you're going up a lot higher, so that does change when sunset is at that altitude. I did do some research on that to see how much difference it makes, and I got completely bamboozled by it. You can look it up, but it starts going into an awful lot of equations and stuff, and I was rubbish at trigonometry when I was at school. And before some of you clever people say, why don't you save your hyperlapse waypoint mission and then use it on another day? It's balked. DJI haven't fixed it in ages, and this tends to happen. The aircraft travels towards the first waypoint, but for some reason it rapidly descends. And if you're not keeping an eye on it, it's going to fly into the ground, or into a person or a building, which obviously is not optimal. I did try it out again recently, and almost ended up with my Mini 4 Pro in the field over there. Now that's a school field. I don't want to be trying to go and get my drone back from there. I don't want to end up on a list. Again, I've never been on a list, at least not that sort of list. So just don't bother doing that. I'll keep checking it, see if DJI fixes it, and I'll let you know. Always keep your drone within visual line of sight, and if possible so that you can tell its orientation as well, especially if you're new to the drone hobby. The other good thing with being prepped is that you can make sure that you've got all of your settings right, and you've got the maximum amount of time to do that. I didn't do it with this one. I've got the horizon line right in the middle, and I prefer it on the top third or the bottom third because it just looks better. Something that often happens, but I can reframe it in post. Don't stress your batteries out. You want to keep them for another day. I've had these batteries for a year and a half now, and I've stressed them an awful lot, so they're not as good as they used to be. But if it's just on that first beep of the emergency, then we can bring it back in, and we can bring it back in quickly. How do you prep for your emergency hyperlapses? Why not leave a comment down below and share with the rest of us how you do it? There we go. Another one in the bag. Let's have a look. I think this one might be pretty special. Here's a very quick montage of what I've done this week. They're not in any particular order, but I think you'll like the one at the end. With a really fresh battery and a bit of practice, you should be able to get your drone up in the air and get your waypoints planned and get a good 20 to 25 second hyperlapse out of it. If you want to see some more sunset hyperlapses, then have a look here. And if you want to see what YouTube thinks you'll find interesting, then have a look here.
So restless in my mind. That's why I'm so high.